Can everyone hear well? Cool. I have a very brief update. We don't have a lot of stuff going on today. Let's see. So we have a number of confirmed cases is 54 now. Given the lag time sometimes in between when the health department shares information with us, or when the health department gets the state Department of Health gets information when it's shared with us, I'm a little bit skeptical that that's the accurate number. We tend to get updates in the middle of the day, and that's not as much of a bump as I was expecting today. But that's technically the information we have available now is that we have 54 cases. Today, our public school team has given out over 46,000 meals since this began, which is pretty incredible. And I wanted to note an issue that we continue to have in our parks. While most people are practicing social distancing, we continue to have a lot of complaints about families in playgrounds, families playing ball, and people congregating in parks in big groups. And just wanted to underscore to everyone out there that they need to practice social distancing to allow us to slow the spread of the virus, and ask for people's compliance in that. I don't have a lot of other updates, believe it or not, other than we just continue to work diligently on a variety of things that we've been updating you on a daily basis. I would like to hand it over to either Dr. White or Mr. Pinto to talk about some updates they have on their online learning program. So Dr. White?
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. New Haven Public Schools is preparing to launch its remote learning this Monday. Currently, we've given out nearly 6,500 devices for families to connect to this platform. We will be still supporting families beyond this if there's a need for additional devices to connect. And students will have the opportunity to engage with their teachers, both in a combination of work they can do at a time with teachers engaging with them, and work that teachers will put up and they'll have opportunity to complete. It's not going to be perfect, but we are going to continue working on the rollout of this. We want to make sure we can capture all of our students in one way or another. We'll be checking in to see who we're not connecting with, so that we can use our youth and family engagement workers to help contact students, keep track of all of our students, so that we can push through this time period as we want to continue the learning.
Does anyone else on our team have anything to add, or should we just hand it over to other folks for questions? Everyone's good? Okay, we'll open up to questions. It was a quick update today. Go ahead, Mary.
I guess maybe this is a question for Mr. White. How many students, how many grades will you be reaching with the online learning? Is it just high school?
No, it goes into our K-8 schools. Some schools are doing it down to 4th grade. Others are just keeping it in their middle school grades. So it's a mix of both digital learning as well as assignments that will continuously be placed on the New Haven Public Schools website. So there are a variety of ways that students will be able to access work. Obviously, there'll be work that can be done online, things that can be downloaded and done. And also we're including their time to make sure that kids are taking their brain breaks. They're continuing to engage in both core subjects as well as enrichment subjects. Things from the performing arts, athletics, physical education, as well as traditional core subjects.
I could add, as far as my own personal experience, so our daughter is in kindergarten, and her teacher's been communicating with our family about downloading some apps so that she can start to do online learning with her iPad. So even at that level, our teachers being really proactive to start this.
All right, I have another question on another subject.
Go for it, and then we can go to Amber. I saw Amber raise her
Sure.
hand after you. Go ahead.
When will you start the, I guess, training for the medical corps people? And
I think that was WTNH News, but that's okay. It's good. It was a good tune. Training for MRC, the Medical Reserve Corps. I don't have a good answer for that. The training is pretty quick, and they get sworn in, but I can get you an answer. Rick Fontana's not on the call, and he's more aware of that. Director Bond, do you have anything to add there, or should we defer to Rick?
She can refer to Rick. We'll be able to provide you more details.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Amber.
Hi, Mayor. Good afternoon. Question for you in regards to Yale. What has their reason been for not allowing first responders to stay on campus?
Their reasoning that they gave me was that the students' materials were in the dorms, and they could not remove the students' materials in the dorms. The UNH had the same issue, and I know Southern has also had that issue, and they've removed the students' materials from the dorms.
And Southern has, you said.
Correct.
And I guess how did you respond to them when they told you that? Are you trying to find a way for them to go about doing so?
I don't think it's my responsibility to determine how Yale should get their students' materials out of the dorms. I think oftentimes, I can talk about my conversation with the University of New Haven, where the leadership said, there's some hurdles, but we will make this happen, and figured out a way to make this happen. I think that generally in times of crisis, we're looking for everyone to not find ways to say no, but find ways to say yes. And so many people in our community and many of our partners have been approaching this crisis with that attitude. And I think that's been quite inspiring to see from many groups in the city.
And Mayor, if I could just ask one more question in regards to Trump's comments on quarantining, what do you have to say about that? Good idea, bad idea, indifferent?
I think as much as possible, people should be staying away from other people. And I think that that coming from the president is an important message, because there's been consistently inconsistent messages from Washington. And that is the message that's important for people to hear, that people need to stay away from each other, and as much as they can, quarantine themselves and their families so that they don't contribute to spreading this virus.
Do you think it's too late for that?
No. Ideally, we would have done this a lot sooner, but the more people stop interacting with each other, the slower the virus will spread, plain and simple.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yep. Other questions? I'm going to go with Mr. Flood. There you go. Oh.
There we go. All right, thank you, Mayor. Clock 61. Regarding the president's comments on quarantine, you're saying that people should stay away from each other as much as possible, but that's a voluntary thing. What he's talking about is an enforceable quarantine. I don't know how it would be enforced, but apparently he's got some room under the Stafford Act to do that. So what's your opinion on that? That it would be a mandatory and enforced restriction on travel?
I think that we need to look for all kinds of ways to make sure that people stop interacting with each other. Obviously, when we push a forced quarantine, it has a potential to create a lot of unintended consequences. Does that cover healthcare workers? Does that cover someone that works at a gas station that a healthcare worker may need to get gas to get to the hospital? Does that cover someone that works at a daycare that provides services for a healthcare worker? And so I think the message is what's important. I think pushing people in many, many different ways to stay home is critical. I think it's important. The implementation is pretty key. And so if the president does end up implementing this, I think we have to be cautious about how we implement it.
Mary?
Okay, you have something else, Mr. Flood? Okay, I think I saw Sam and then Jennifer.
Yes.
Okay.
You mentioned Southern just now, and they have stuff in their students' dorms. Did you reach out to them to see if they would be willing to host?
I've been in pretty active conversations with President Joe of Southern, and I understand that's a state site, and I understand the state is looking at universities around the state also for support in this effort. I think for more information on that, you should contact the state to get a sense of what their plans may be.
I see. Have you also been thinking about enforcement measures to keep people from congregating in parks?
We've been reluctant to be heavy-handed in this. And generally when police officers go to sites where people are gathering and talk with people, they disperse. Given the persistent problems in particular with parks, we're exploring other ways to disincentivize people from gathering. And if this continues to be a problem, we may find other ways to escalate.
I see. And then finally, you said there's possible discrepancy between the numbers that you report and the reality. There's also been, I think, a difference every day between the numbers that are reported by the state and the ones that you report in the press conferences. Is that just because of a lag in timing for reporting, or is there a difference in the way that cases are counted?
Director Bond, can you fill us in on this?
Yeah, good afternoon. That's a good question. So there's a variety of things. So there's different labs that are that the testing is being analyzed. And so by the time they get back to the reporting system, so there is a significant lag there. Some are going, from out of state labs and in-state labs. And then so there's a variety of things going on there. So that slows down the data for us to receive it. We're also working closely with our hospital partner to ensure that we also have live data. And so once we get that cleared, we can have real actual data to try to align with our numbers. So that can become problematic because we know that the numbers are much higher than the reality that we're looking at each day. So they're coming in really slowly. And so we're patiently waiting to really assess that data so that we can be able to do the proper contact tracing that is required.
But Director Bond, just to clarify, so we receive information from the hospital about positive cases, but oftentimes we'll receive that data later from the Department of Health. Is that correct?
Correct. Okay. Through the surveillance system.
So that's just I want to take a moment to thank the hospital for being so collaborative with us. It's important to get that information quickly, because then our health department provides some of that information to our first responders so that if they do respond to a home, they know that there's a COVID positive patient inside that home so that they can prepare for that. And it allows our health department also to monitor people and help support them.
Thank you.
Yep. Let's go to Jennifer.
Hi, Mr. Mayor. This is Jen Peltz from the AP. I'm a newcomer to this group, but I did want to return to the subject of the president's remarks about potential quarantine and just ask, what did you make of the fact that he was talking specifically about Connecticut, New York, and New Jersey, and not seemingly other states?
How much can you read into a tweet, really, right? Obviously, there's many other communities in the United States that are getting hit very, very hard. You look at what's happened in Washington State and California. Every day, the map of the United States becomes more red as far as places that are impacted by COVID-19. I don't think any of us have any ability to get inside the president's head to understand why he would pick on these several states. All of the country should be thinking about and preparing for this.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome, and welcome to this group. We hope you'll come back again.
I hope so too.
Other questions? Go ahead, Mary.
I was wondering when, I think the UNH dorms are supposed to be ready soon, and when they will actually be open to firefighters and police from New Haven.
So we're very close to finalizing an agreement with them, and once it's final, we'll have the green light to move in. I don't have a specific date. As you know, these agreements oftentimes take a little bit longer than you'd expect to hammer out the details around liability, et cetera, but we're close to finalizing this agreement.
All right, I wonder if you actually contacted the hospital when they were saying yesterday that they had so many extra volunteers they couldn't use.
I did not. Thank you for the reminder.
Thanks.
Yep. Other questions? Amber raised her hand. Okay.
And Mayor, in regards to safety in the community and arrests, how are we determining who we are arresting and who we are not?
That's more of a question for the chief of police. What we have done is reduce the number of individuals in our lockup facility. As I'm sure many people on this call know, our lockup facility oftentimes only houses someone for a day, maybe 3 days if it's over a weekend. So people are there for a very, very short time. And in order to decompress the facility and make sure that there aren't too many people inside that might create an environment where people could spread COVID-19, the chief of police and I have had conversations about reducing the number of people that we arrest. I'm happy to have the chief on a future call to answer those questions. We've also increased the number of times that the facility is cleaned, and we have had no cases at all of COVID-19 in our lockup facility.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yep. Other questions? Go ahead, Mary.
I've been told, someone called me and said that there was a school employee, actually a custodian, who's come down with COVID. I was just wondering if that's been reported to the school system.
I'm not aware of that. I'm not sure if anyone else wants to weigh in, or Director Bond, do you have anything to say on this? Or
I'm gonna defer that to Michael Pinto.
we're going to pass it around until everyone says we don't know anything about it, and then we'll get back to you.
It does appear that we have a custodian who's a Wallingford resident. So it took a little time to track this down.
We should be cautious not to give a lot of details about the person so that it's identifiable.
Fair enough. Right, it's outside of it. The person resides outside of New Haven, and it's fair enough. But that's right. It is a custodian, and my understanding is that they have been hospitalized, and we are working to ensure that that facility is fully decontaminated and fully disinfected. We will be, we will following proper protocols for. Obviously, we continue to follow proper protocols for social distancing while people are at work, and for personal protective equipment for while people are custodians are cleaning. And we press on with the important business of making sure that that the students are fed and that the buildings are clean and disinfected.
So custodians are on a regular schedule to clean buildings?
Yeah, since we've been closed, they've been disinfecting buildings, effectively top to bottom, going through a checklist, and then effectively closing rooms once they've been fully disinfected. Obviously, there is some activity on the first floors of the buildings as we've been trying to, it's a limited amount and the buildings are nearly empty, but we did have people in the buildings to give out the electronic, laptops and Chromebooks, and we are daily at 38 sites rather, giving out meals. So there is a limited amount of activity in the buildings, but effectively the buildings are empty and we continue to clean and disinfect those areas that are affected each day.
Thank you.
On to Mr. Flood.
If I can just follow up there with Mr. Pino, do you know the last time that the custodian was in a public school building, and when was he diagnosed?
My understanding is we got the formal diagnosis was, or formal test confirmation was today. And that person has not been in the building for nearly 2 weeks. And in fact, the building that they had been in, we were actually just finished disinfecting as of yesterday. So we will continue to disinfect that building, thoroughly again. So.
Any other questions?
Thank you. I'm just wondering if there's any concern about other residents at Bella Vista, if any of them are in isolation or have been tested or have tested positive.
Director Bond, do you have an answer here? You're on mute.
Hello.
Yep, we can hear you.
Hi, Sam. Can you repeat the question, please?
I'm wondering if any more residents at Bella Vista have tested positive or are under surveillance.
Not at this time.
So that means no one is has been tested, other than the one resident that tested positive.
There are no other individuals of interest at this time that reside at Bella Vista.
Well, and Sam, just to clarify your question, we don't always know when people are tested. We will be notified if their test comes back positive. So if someone and people can get tested in a variety of different ways. They can get tested at the hospital drive-through site, but they could also go outside of New Haven. I've heard of people driving to New London and places in Fairfield County to get tested. If there is a positive test that's done at the hospital, we will get notified directly by the hospital. If there's a test and it becomes positive in another site in Connecticut, then eventually, after a short period of time, we will be notified if they're a New Haven resident by the Connecticut Department of Public Health.
Through a surveillance system, correct.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? Going once, going twice. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you soon. Appreciate it.